I've never seen this until this week because I've avoided it for, 30 years. Because when I was at school, my friend Leslie, she was terrified of clowns, absolutely, but terrified of all clowns, to be fair. But she really fancied Jonathan Brandis a lot. Like, we were really little. We were like 10 or 11 or something.
Which one's Jonathan Brandis?
He's young Bill.
Oh, okay.
So we tried to watch it and she was just inconsolable. Like, we couldn't get past the storm drain scene like a lot of people. So then I was like, nope, yeah, you're right. Clowns are scary, it turns out. And so I've never, ever been near it. But I did read it after Leslie refused to watch it because I wanted to know what the fuss was about. And I've never seen any of it until...
This is your first watch?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Because I was so scared.
Okay, cool. Well, mine is that I watched it in 1990 whenever... Someone must have had a VHS of it when it was released as a whole movie, and I watched it, and like I said, just the scariest thing I'd ever seen. The bit in the drain. I mean, we'll go through all the scenes that fucked me up as a kid, but the minute his face changes in that drain, I was both sold on it, like, I have to now watch this because I have to see that die because it's so scary. Amazing. I loved it. Chris?
Yeah, I was too scared to watch it when I was younger. So I saw most of it for the first time about 5 years ago, but I did fall asleep.
Right, yeah.
And then I went back to it a few weeks later and finished it. And my takeaway was, that Tim Curry's good. I want to start a podcast in 3 years where we keep talking about him.
If you see...
Excuse me, sir. Do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
Yeah, Mike Hanlon, but I had to go.
It's a massive book. Lawrence Cohen gets it from his agent. He's like, I thought they'd sent me two by mistake, like 2 manuscripts, because it's ginormous. So they're talking about adapting it for ABC. There's a lot of discussions about an 8-hour format, a 10-hour format, and eventually a 4-hour format was settled on. But at one point, George A. Romero was going to direct it, and now he was more interested in the 8 to 10-hour version because of what you can do. So there's a lot of like backstage shenanigans. But basically, once we're on 4 hours, because ABC were a bit freaked out about the material and about how long everybody wanted it to be, George is gone because we're at 4 hours. So then we get Tommy Lee Wallace, who, credit fans, was associate art editor on Dark Star.
Dark Star, Halloween, The Fog. He was one of Carpenter's boys.
But the thing is, there was a rule in TV at the time. I don't know if it's still a rule, but you cannot show kids in jeopardy. You just can't. Like, otherwise it's not on the telly. So a lot of the jeopardy had to be implied with like reaction shots rather than showing something like super scary, super gory. So I think you end up with these very Stand By Me vibes, which is not a bad thing, but it's not as true to the book in that sense, in that there's less gore and less sort of bloody scares and things like that.
I will say, the movie does not hide Tim Curry from the start. The first thing you actually see is him in those sheets.
Yeah.
And little Laurie is on the tricycle. And even that tiny moment, because it switches, this movie does make incredible use of POV shots.
Yeah.
That bit where it just, like, you're not seeing him, you're seeing his point of view emerging from those sheets towards her, and she screams. Terrifying.
Really terrifying. They started off with quite a lot of chin and cheek prosthetics, but eventually they just sacked that off and just put him in clown makeup and gave him some teeth.
Do you know why, though? I think this is really interesting. Curry says about this, he says that the prosthetics that they had at the start did too much work by itself, and he thought what was more interesting was the look in Pennywise's eyes when you know he's going to kill, and that's what he wanted to capture. And he said the prosthetics stopped that, and I think he was 100% right, because it is that if he was hidden behind prosthetics, you know, sure, he's got the fangs in and the context in, but any more than that, and you would ruin those moments, which are the scariest moments, where he just suddenly changes and goes for the kids.
Yeah, he straddles supernatural because he's got the enlarged head, but also a real person. You know, you don't have to have that big bulbous head, but then you've just got like, it would seem more like a psycho, like it's sort of a bad person rather than something from somewhere else.
There's just a wonderful bit of Tim Curry audio where he's asked about Pennywise, and you hear him go, basically, he's just pure evil, really. And he can also metamorphosize into various other forms. I won't tell you what he turns into at the end, but basically, he's completely irredeemable. He's the kind of chap that's entirely without charm.
That's right.
Such a great Tim Curry.
What I remember from that interview was the sandwich that Tim Curry was eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, cream cheese and tomato.
I know.
That's weird. Because the tomato would like bleed into the cream cheese. I don't get it.
The day that we went into the sewer, Stan saw it. Face to face. Not the clown, but he saw what was behind the clown.
They are some of the worst dressed adult characters in TV
Don't
history.
start that ponytail.
Ponytail with a mullet.
It's egregious. It's vile. I absolutely hate
The
it.
problem is that character is clearly Stephen King in
Yeah.
this bill.
Yeah,
and you're looking at him going, no, just that, no, make him just not that. I don't think Stephen King's ever had that haircut.
I think he probably has.
He's had a
He has a
mullet.
bad haircut.
I've never seen him with a ponytail.
And Bill remembers his little brother Georgie playing all alone with his toy boat and reaching a storm drain. So, as I've said, when I was younger, this is as far as I got because this is fucking scary as you like.
Yep.
Like, storm drains are scary, and I don't know if that's because of this or because they just are. Who knows?
It's because of this.
It must be, mustn't it?
It is 'cause
Do
of
we
this.
even have storm? We don't have, I don't know.
Not things like, do we have storm? We don't really have storm
In
drains like
London,
that.
I don't know, like big old storm drains. I just don't feel like I've ever seen one, and yet I'm scared of them.
It's because we have grates on them that you can't be sucked down. But in this, you can be pulled through a storm drain. That's the scary thing. And
Yeah.
suddenly, like, you can be in a split second from the street into a sewer.
Yeah. So we meet Pennywise and you get his voice is sort of, it's meant to be like kind of a Brooklyn accent as opposed to, later Bill Skarsgård, this got this sort of old timey thing going on.
I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers. My dad said so.
Very wise of your dad, Georgie. Very wise indeed. I, Georgie, am Pennywise the Dancing Clown. You are Georgie. So now we know each other.
But big difference here, Georgie's definitely dead in this version. So, because later on, it's an interesting thing because he's definitely dead rather than sort of missing. Whereas in 2017 and 2019, the parents know he's dead, but his brother won't have it kind of thing.
Yeah, that's because in this one, which we find out in dialogue, which I remember that dialogue, and it makes it even worse when they basically say his arm was torn clean off.
Yeah, because they couldn't show it because it's telly.
Yeah. But so you know that if they know that, though, they found the body, whereas obviously in 2017, he gets pulled into the storm drain completely, so the body disappears. Do you want a weird connection that I found?
Yeah.
That it's probably just me. There's a connection between the start of this and Georgie's death and the start of Jaws the Revenge.
Really?
Because both movies start with a younger brother in a yellow raincoat who initially gets attacked to their arm ripped off before meeting their end in a watery grave.
Yep.
Jaws 4 and It 1990 start the same way.
Very good.
Wow.
So Tim Curry says, when he's acting with a little kid called Tony Dakota, he said, I felt so sorry for that kid because when I'm in the drain and I'm like, they all float down here, the kid went, Tim, you're scaring me.
Oh, no.
And Tim Curry goes, I'm sorry, but that's what I'm meant to be doing.
Do you want your equity card or not, Tony?
You're supposed to be scared, so we're quids in already.
Why didn't anybody tell Tony what was going to happen? Can we go to the playground? No, this is kind of a playground, Tony, so you just have to say a few things and then Mummy will get some money and we'll all go home.
We also see the Barons for the first time early on when we meet young Ben, don't we?
Yeah.
And he sees his dad standing in the Barrens. I think this is one thing the 1990 version gets right so much better than the 2017 version because that whole set of the entrance to the sewers and that giant marsh in front of it feels ominous. It feels isolated. Damn it. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's like the equivalent of the ominous like nature of the Overlook Hotel, but it's not far off. It's just that shot that keeps being repeated of it in the distance. Magnificent.
It's because of the juxtaposition, isn't it? It jars your brain because in the later versions, that's a house on a street. It's a horrible house, but it's a house on a street.
Exactly.
This looks like a castle in a marsh, which doesn't make any sense. And then the Overlook's the same. You've got this wilderness and then a spotless hotel. So yeah, I get that.
And we talk about Stephen King sort of doing the same things over and over again. And certainly when Henry Bowers and his Greaser gang show up, it's straight out of Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That scene where the corpse comes out of the lake.
Yeah.
That's quite funny as well because that was the biggest problem ABC had because they were like, well, the corpse, it can't have any meat on it.
Yeah, they said it has to be dry.
Yeah, they were like, they said it can't be American Werewolf in London. It can be Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
It must be a dry corpse.
And so they couldn't have any meat on it, but they were allowed to hang seaweed off it. If it was going to be wet, no meat. Wet corpse, no meat. Dry corpse, meat. Wet corpse, no meat.
But I think what bothers me about clowns is that they're very needy. And I don't like that, like neediness. I know. But that, I'm being honest, like, why do I not like neediness? I suppose I just don't like, because when they do a trick at the circus, they're like, laugh. And you have to be like, oh, ha, ha, ha.
It's very try hard.
Yeah.